If you're hearing this, well done. You found a way to connect to the internet. Welcome to the QAA Podcast, episode 346, The Tech Billionaire Doomsday Preachers. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rakutansky,
Julian Fields,
and Travis View. The oldest and most primal mass paranoia is fear of the apocalypse. The worry that the world as we know it is on the cusp of being destroyed either permanently or as a step towards the path of creating a new world is in some of the oldest religious traditions and texts. But in the 21st century, the most widely followed doomsday preachers aren't hyper-religious, they're billionaires who made their fortune in Silicon Valley. They say that civilization is dangerously fragile, and the only way to avoid total disaster and instead put humanity on the path towards universal prosperity is by never regulating tech or regulating tech on their terms, never increasing their taxes, or really never saying anything bad about them ever. Probably the most colorful example of this is Peter Thiel's obsession with the Antichrist, though people like Elon Musk and Marc Andreessen have also repeatedly warned that humanity is on the path to destruction.
This reminds me of like one of my favorite literary phrases in French, il se fait tard, de plus en plus tard. And it's getting later and later. And as we see the waning light in our own lives, we can't help but wish on some level that the world would go with us.
Now, to better understand this phenomenon, today we are joined by Christopher Marquis. He is the Sinyi Professor of Chinese Management at Cambridge Judge Business School and a leading scholar of sustainable enterprise and the politics of business. He's the author of The Profiteers, How Business Privatizes Profits and Socializes Costs, and other books, and has written about the political goals of tech billionaires for Jacobin magazine. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great to be with you.
Yeah, so before we go into the specific questions I have for you about this weird phenomenon, I'm curious, just generally, why do you think our tech oligarchs sound so paranoid and weird? I think it used to be when titans of industry allowed their personal kind of paranoia and neuroses to consume them. They went the route of William Randolph Hearst and bought more art and artifacts than they could afford in this ludicrously massive estate. Or Howard Hughes, who isolated himself in his hotel suite and stored his urine in bottles. Or even just Henry Ford. He just did anti-Semitism.
Yeah. You could just become an anti-Semite.
No,
if
but
you want.
this makes perfect fucking sense. It's if you're going to go through a midlife crisis, if you're going to face your death, your actual extinction, the extinction of your very consciousness, it's going to be way worse when these people have access to levers that can affect millions. We're all going to be affected by these men having the DMT rerun of their entire shitty lives.
But, it seems our modern tech billionaires, they sound like a cliche, the doomsday preacher with a sandwich board saying the end is nigh. Just generally, what do you think this is about?
I think a lot of it is, they had all this success early on and they got really sort of confident in their own sort of ideas and opinion and place in the world, and everyone's telling them how great they are. And I think that they really are about very much sort of self-preservation of that. Part of it is, they have these public companies with tons of sort of pressure from investors, and they see, the only way to really, take control is by having themselves in charge and having, I think, Peter Thiel, who we'll talk about, has a lot of sort of off the charts crazy ideas about Antichrist and other things. But I think people like Mark Zuckerberg, Marc Andreessen, Elon Musk, it is about sort of cementing their sort of control, on the economy and society and protecting their businesses.
I'm really kind of torn on whether it's better to have the kind of French king who thinks he's appointed by God, or these fucking assholes who essentially just got really good at the game of capitalism, because neither are particularly interesting, or really relevant to evolution on Earth. They're not particularly smart or, like I said, interesting. So, you know what? Should we get Louis XIV back? I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that I would choose the French king over the tech oligarchs.
Yeah, I think these guys are trying to buy the God DLC. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I can't imagine what it's like to get everything you want and to in fact live as a king. You know, staffs of hundreds. I'm sure. I got a buddy who lives next door to Mark Zuckerberg's like end of the world compound in Hawaii,
Wow.
and it's like, you know, it's like something out of a John Cusack end of the world movie. I say that like there's like a bunch of those movies, but I'm just referencing one.
I think we need to force them back into the conditions that the kings had. So like, okay, you have like several incurable diseases like syphilis. You're sleeping with like 18 people in your bed, of various different genders, and you have to go poop in like a large kind of like wooden contraption.
Well, Chris and Travis, wasn't it Peter Thiel who really was like kind of doing adrenochrome? Like I remember a long time ago.
Ambrosia. He was injecting teenage blood. Yeah.
He looks great.
Yeah, you look great, man. Hey, it worked out for you. It worked out for you, brother. He looks like a human tendon. Like he looks like he's always made of only sinew.
Peter, who's your child bank, by the way? Who do you have? Who do you have like tubed up in your basement?
Who's your fantasy child team? Like, betting on
your fantasy
these are like the most
blood
powerful
bag.
children. These are the most powerful children. They're gonna feed us the best, and then man, I just lost $100 to my buds.
Like I said, I think this is part of like this weird doomsday apocalyptic rhetoric. It's part of, I think, a general trend among tech billionaires. But I think it's in the news recently because of Peter Thiel. And he has been talking about the Antichrist for a couple years now. And then recently he decided to give a series of lectures in San Francisco, sort of like philosophizing about like who the Antichrist could be, and warning that Armageddon is coming. Very kind of like unusual pastime for someone in his station.
Travis, it's obviously Greta Thunberg. It's obviously like the young woman who cares about anything.
We're going to get to
It's
that.
obviously
That is
the only person with
stuff.
like the tiny shred of soul that like he's like, man, she really bothers me. That must be a thorn. That is really the thorn in his lion's paw. Is like anyone who cares, anyone who has a fucking soul.
I thought this was kind of more like a Tim Robinson, like in the hot dog costume situation, where he's up on stage being like, "Who could possibly be the Antichrist? Who did this? Who could possibly have done this?"
He just drove the Antichrist mobile through like the front window of humanity. He's like, I don't know who did this.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a weird there's a theory going around that this was a sort of an SEO play because people kept calling Peter Thiel the Antichrist, and so he decided to do a bunch of lectures and start engaging with Antichrist.
Oh, of course.
So when people Google Peter Thiel Antichrist, then all of a sudden they get all this stuff instead of like people theorizing like, man, this guy's like, it's like, oh, this guy's about to put the mark of the beast on us. This guy sounds like the Antichrist.
Can you fucking imagine being so worried that you might actually be the Antichrist that you have to do like defensive talks? And you're probably not even religious, and you're still like, man, the shoe fits.
So Thiel, he describes himself as a small O Orthodox Christian. I don't know what the hell that means. And he believes that the harbinger of the end of the world could already be in our midst. The Antichrist is already here, and that things like international agencies, environmentalism, and guardrails on technology could quicken its rise.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem for sure. Yeah, the stuff slowing down the Antichrist is definitely the Antichrist.
So tickets to these lectures were $200 each, and they were quickly sold out. Like one condition is that you couldn't record. Obviously, people recorded, leaked it to the press, which is why we know about them.
I would love to pay for $200 to hear Tom Cruise explain how he's not gay.
So he defined the Antichrist as an evil king or tyrant or anti-messiah who appears in the end times.
Well, then why are you talking about the little girl who got like fucking dragged around by like Israelis? Like, what the fuck are you on about? You are the guy. You're running the whole fucking ship. You control so much. Of course it's the little girl who doesn't do anything like that affects you. The person who puts their body on the line. God, I've been told that I shouldn't do any because the death threats have been too much lately, so I won't say anything.
So yeah, I'm just curious about his targets for the Antichrist.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read a couple of exact quotes from his lectures. Jake, could you take this one?
All right, I gotta put on a voice like my jugular vein is like trying to get out of my neck. My thesis. No, it's too much. Okay, I'm just gonna. You guys can imagine, listeners.
No, just
you
chill,
imagine.
just
You
chill,
imagine how bad he sounds. My thesis is that in the 17th, 18th century, the Antichrist would have been a Dr. Strangelove, a scientist who did all this sort of evil, crazy science.
He's so stupid. He's so dumb. He doesn't even know how to talk. Dumbass.
In the 21st century, the Antichrist is a Luddite who wants to stop all science. It's someone like Greta or Eliezer.
Wait, who's Eliezer?
That's Eliezer Yudkowsky. This is a AI critic that a lot of Silicon Valley hate a lot.
Oh my God. Yeah, you know who it is? It's the people who criticize me.
Yeah.
It turns out. Fucking
Turns
hell.
out that's who it was all along.
Yeah.
The people who bother me, like again, the tiny thorn in my big lion paw. That's the problem.
I want to read one more sentence from his lecture before I get your take on this, Christopher. So this one also was interesting.
In late modernity, where science has become scary and apocalyptic, and the legionnaires of the Antichrist like Eliezer Yudkowsky, Nick Bostrom, and Greta Thunberg argue for world government to stop science, the Antichrist has somehow become anti-science.
But okay, can you at least point out how your science, the thing that they're anti, is going to lead us anywhere good? Because they never have an actual positive solution, right? They're just like, stop slowing us down. And it's like, well, you're wrecking the entire fucking world. You're clearly draining us of our blood. And they're like, you know what the problem is? We had to reduce blood drainage by 5%.
It was like, yeah, right. It's like these are, I think, very strange people for someone with the amount of wealth that Thiel has, the amount of connections that Thiel has to be worried about. Yeah, Eliezer Yudkowsky, just an AI critic. Nick Bostrom, this is a Swedish philosopher who talks about the anthropic principle. And yeah, activist Greta Thunberg.
You know what the problem is, Travis? There's too many mirrors in this room.
Hang a cloth on it.
Why do I keep seeing myself? Why does a person with a soul keep making me feel like I maybe am completely fucking gone and lost?
I think most people in like Thiel's station wouldn't be worried about like people who like talk about environmentalism or like who have criticisms for AI, but he seems very, very like almost religiously paranoid about these kinds of people. Where do you think this is coming from, Chris?
I mean, I think part of it is what's been just talked about. I mean, it's very like self-defensive that that he clearly these are things that threaten him, and it's not just about, I think, with a lot of these guys, not just Peter Thiel, their business interests, but they are very like thin-skinned and take these things very, very personally. And so, sort of Elon Musk, he doesn't get invited to some event at the White House and he just goes crazy and, gives $290 million something to Trump. I mean, that's a simplistic way to put it. But I do think that there is this like very thin-skinned defensiveness that's part of it. And the thing that's amazing to me about the Thiel example, I'd heard about him talking about the Antichrist, and I always thought it was similar, like maybe some SEO type of, or some sort of like tongue-in-cheek almost, but it is very, very literal. If you read these quotes from this event, I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Things like, not just, Greta and other people, but like Marc Andreessen, people asked him, is Marc Andreessen the Antichrist? And he said, well, probably not, because the Antichrist would be popular.
Yeah, the Antichrist would have a shape of head that makes more sense. He wouldn't look like an egg.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's I mean, I think it is very much this sort of thin-skinned defensiveness. And this is not just about, the Antichrist. A lot of the other sort of philosophy and ideas that he has, or Marc Andreessen has, or Elon Musk is putting out, are very much about, trying to defend things like Palantir or Facebook. So, he is all, anti sort of China's surveillance state and integration of tech with the military. I mean, and you think, like, did he not actually look at the company that he co-founded? So I think so much of what they say is so clearly a way to distract from actually the problems of their own business model.
It's so awesome to name your company like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
And then be like, I don't understand. I don't understand the criticism here. Yeah. The problem is that people are getting in the way of my company, Mordor, like the evil eye of Satan himself. Like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, I imagine that you have to have a thin skin to want to become a billionaire, right? Because if 999 million isn't enough, there's gotta be something. I remember old boss doesn't listen to the show. Maybe he does. I don't know. If you're listening, this one's for you. Who once told me one of the most brilliant things that I've ever heard. And this is he was very wealthy, very successful guy. And I was asking him for advice. And he goes, I'll tell you what. He goes, if there's something broken inside of you, the money's not gonna fix it. And I was like, oh man, that's really heavy. And, I think about that over the years, and what I've taken it to sort of mean is that if you are basing your self-worth on how much money you have, there's nothing worse than getting the thing you want and that you think is going to fix you and make you whole again, getting it and realizing that it hasn't, And I think a lot of these guys, it's like once they've conquered the physical world, they move on to the spiritual because like what else is there? It's like boring to talk about.
No, they can't have access to the spiritual.
Yeah,
it's still
exactly.
the physical world. It's still like, I didn't get invited to the party. This one person said something bad about me. They have no access to heaven, Jake.
Yeah, I know. I think that's it. I think that's part of it. There's like they internally they feel, no stairway, denied.
We have to deal with the small insecurities of these big baby men. Our entire society is ruled, swayed, fucking honestly like devastated by the tiny insecurities of men who have it all.
And all we can do is point out what big babies they are.
Well, it does make them furious, so at least that's funny.
It does make them furious, but
yeah. What do you mean I paid for my Path of Exile 2 character?
Yeah, I want to go back to the quotes that were revealed about his lectures in The Guardian. And one of the persons that he proposed, which was possibly the Antichrist, which he ultimately dismisses, is Bill Gates. He seems to have a lot of beef with Bill Gates.
He's like, wait a second, there's too many similarities. I actually don't want to call this guy the Antichrist. It has to be someone poor. Like, who makes no money?
One thing I wanted to point out that was sort of like that kind of like the way in which he uses the rhetoric of the Antichrist that deviates the way that kind of like American evangelicals did in the 20th century. There was this, especially after in the middle of the Cold War, and there were preachers like Hal Lindsey, who wrote that late Great Planet Earth, who revived prophecy talk based upon the Bible, the Antichrist. And there was a lot of fear about technology, specifically the fear that they paid a lot of attention to the verse that talked about how there would be a mark on your hand or your forehead and no one could buy or sell anything without this mark. And a lot of people thought that this was like, oh, this might be credit cards, or this indicates that our tech overlords are going to microchip us. But, it's very strange that Thiel kind of like takes this sort of like on its head. It's not people who are pushing all pervasive technology in all parts of life who are the Antichrist. It's actually people who oppose, this, especially strange for Thiel, who's like the part owner of Palantir, which is so involved in like surveillance and government activity. But why is exactly? It was like, what do you make of the fact that he's turning the sort of the rhetoric of Christian paranoia in the 20th century kind of like on its head and saying it's actually anti-technology that's going to bring about the Antichrist, not pervasive mandatory technology?
Yeah, I mean, my sort of great grade school sort of Bible study, I've forgotten most of the actual like real focus on the Antichrist, but I think it's very similar to what we were talking about. I mean, I think that anything that he sees as a threat, he's obviously sort of standing on, PayPal and Palantir and his investment in Meta, and so these are things that he thinks are going to save the world. I think that he really may actually believe that, he is some historically unique figure. Certainly people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg think this, and that things that actually impede his progress must actually be somehow, sort of anti-civilization or anti the world. So I think, it's, again, he's viewing this very much through his own personal neuroses, basically, an interest in controlling or in elevating what he's actually done.
I'd also argue that, like, I think American secularism is actually Protestantism in disguise. That like so many of the structures, I think, of like how Protestantism processes things like, you know, the apocalypse or virtue have actually just transferred almost directly over, and that people who have moved on to science as their kind of new god or technology as their new god, they're just replicating the exact same insane patterns, and that this country, the United States specifically, is kind of guided by extreme religiosity and paranoia. The same thing that kind of founded the country is now visible in these like supposedly secular and non-religious entities.
Yeah, well put.
One of the things that also kind of like worries me, that it's like if just someone like, you know, you met on the street said the world is on a path to a total destruction, dystopia, but however, I know how to get us back on the path to prosperity. And if you give me everything I want and never question me and never sort of like question my motives, then we can go back onto a path of like great universal prosperity. I would think most people will recognize that that's just a sort of like a real boilerplate doomsday cult. That's just Heaven's Gate. That's the basic form of like every kind of doomsday cult, is that like, you know, everything's going to be terrible and all those ignorant people out there are going to face disaster, but if you follow me, then everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, I almost left out the other thing that defines the United States, which is grifting and making a profit, like being a snake oil salesman. That's obviously very present as well.
Yeah, when Peter Thiel like stops you, you know, on the side of the road and opens like his little packet of magical beans to shake into your hand after he's taken your cow. It's just like a bunch of like apps. It's just like a bunch of like apps and like software solutions.
After he's taken your cow is the best thing I've ever heard. Your cow's already gone, by the way. Yeah,
gone. Like you've already signed it over, and you
don't need your cow anymore. In the new world, you don't need your cow.
You open this shitty fucking packet of beans, and it's just a couple apps and like some software like falls out. You're just like, God damn it, I can't fucking climb up to the sky with this shit.
Do they even understand that the rest of the world lives in like physical reality? Like that software and like laptop jobs are like our little bubbles, like existence. This is not how most people live. Most people don't even have fucking plumbing. Like they don't really, I don't think, grasp like how far gone they are. It's like the 1% doesn't even describe it. These people are clearly just, they're living in like a liminal bubble above the world. They have no fucking idea what the average person goes through. Everybody is a toy to them. They're playing SimCity. It's a game to them, and their own importance is of paramount, like existential, level. And it's like, yeah, no, of course you're not that important. Of course you're just a product of a bubble. Of course you're just another rich man who was funneled to the top, not because you're special, but because you're capable of doing the most insane cruelty to others, that you have no regard for anybody, and that capitalism rewards that.
Yeah, going more into like his the Thiel Antichrist lectures. Yeah, like he has a special animus for Bill Gates, which I mean, obviously there's lots of criticism of Bill Gates, especially of his sort of his image as a philanthropist. But it is weird that he sort of like seemed to be sort of like talking about really sort of intra-billionaire beef in these lectures. But here's another quote from these lectures that were recorded.
One of my friends was telling me that I should not pass up on the opportunity to tell those people in San Francisco that Bill Gates is the Antichrist. I will concede that he is certainly a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type character, the public Mr. Rogers, the neighborhood character. I saw the Mr. Hyde version about a year ago, where it was just a non-stop Tourette's, yelling swear words, almost incomprehensible what was going on. He's not a political leader. He's not broadly popular. And again, perhaps to Gates' credit, he's still stuck in the 18th century alongside people like Richard Dawkins, who believe that science and atheism are compatible. I don't think even someone like Bill Gates, who I think is a very, very awful person, is remotely able to be the Antichrist.
This is such a... I mean, first of all, I don't like Richard Dawkins, I don't like Gates, and I don't like Thiel. All of them are fucked in the head. But this is so amazing, saying that they believe that science and atheism are compatible. So you're saying, essentially, that you're like in some sort of like techno-mysticism? Like that you are now thinking that science allows you to fucking bestow genuinely cosmic and like religious. Like you can name gods, you can name devils. A truly insane man. And Bill Gates is, I think what he doesn't like about Bill Gates is that Bill Gates isn't like a kind of human vein. Like he's not like a throbbing human vein. He's genuinely autistic and an insecure little piece of shit that basically sits in the corner stimming. And meanwhile, like this guy is like, I'm pretty sure he's like like through sex with them somehow. And obviously, like, I shouldn't be quoted on that, and that's alleged. But yeah, it's like what he doesn't like about Bill Gates is that Bill Gates isn't like a living hard-on.
I mean, yeah, this was interesting to me because I kind of assumed like Bill Gates, at least he tries to put on this face of like he's, you know, the idea of the giving pledge and like, you know, philanthropy, and I assumed his fellow billionaires would like at least try and do PR for the billionaire class.
No, because that's a tiny mirror. Even though Bill Gates is just using it as to funnel money back to himself, even though he's just laundering, even though it's all bullshit, he's still like, man, I feel somewhat insecure that this guy pretends to be a good guy. That is so insane. He's like, anything that isn't pure evil, that doesn't just go along with my absolutely insane, like selfish, evil fucking vision of the world, I am so insecure about it. I think about it all day and night.
Yeah, Chris, what do you make of Thiel's like strange hostility to Bill Gates?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is this sort of intergenerational, you know, they're focusing on different things. Elon Musk actually has a huge beef with Gates too. And, you know, I guess Bill Gates was, you know, a longtime short seller of Tesla stock. And, you know, Elon Musk would say he never did anything, you know, in the tech world. He's a loser. He just gives money away. He's not creative, et cetera. So I think part of it is that the sort of Bill Gates vision of sort of this trying to be a good person is very different than what people like Thiel and Musk are thinking should be done with their sort of fortune and money. And in part, I mean, I think the irony of this is that if you look at what Marc Andreessen says about how, you know, a lot of the, you know, sort of scrutiny from the Biden administration and Lisa Khan on the tech industry, you know, they got really pissed about that. It's what drove many of them to Trump. And they said, you know, they don't understand there's a deal, that they actually call it the deal with like capital D. And the deal is basically this, that they should give tech basically a wide degree of freedom to do whatever they want. And then they'll become rich, gather a lot of money. And then, you know, 20, 30 years later, they're going to be philanthropists. So in many ways, it's like the Bill Gates model is what they are advocating for why they should be actually no restrictions on them right now. So it is really strange and ironic that they target him like this because they are espousing basically his career for their, you know, as the model for why they should have less scrutiny.
Bill Gates is Unk. He's the risk player who's been playing it for a while. This Settlers of Catan guy, he knows the game. I just arrived, and yeah, I'm throwing my weight around, but this guy's the problem.
I once had an incredible conversation with Brett Leonard. This is the director of Lawnmower Man, an early pioneer in the vision for, you know, how cursed virtual spaces, you know, could be. And he was telling me that, like, after Lawnmower Man came out, he was like Hollywood's it guy, and he was going around and being courted kind of like by all of these like multimillionaires and billionaires who were like, yeah, we're you know, they wanted to talk to him because he was a futurist in a lot of ways, and they were trying to develop the technology that you were sort of seeing in Lawnmower Man. And he said these guys are fucking, he's like, they think they're gonna live forever. He's like, they hang out on islands and do ketamine drips, and like their brains go out into like the four corners of the universe, and they come back and they think that they've solved mortality. And like all of these guys, like that's basically like what they're doing when they get to that point, is like they've solved everything else. And so it becomes like, how can I cheat death? And you know what's he's like, that's what makes them so awful, is that like they all eventually like have to face it, and facing that reality is like what it was. I'm not quoting him exactly, and he's never gonna hear this, so I don't give a shit. But like, it was a fascinating thing about trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who lives on a different plane of existence than 99% of the rest of us.
They think they deserve it.
And they think they deserve it. Yeah, exactly. For being successful.
Like, I'm here because I deserve it. Of course, you couldn't possibly just be, you know, the scummiest man on earth that like got risen to the top after a mountain of privilege amounted to you getting the shot at being the cruelest. No, of course not. It's not that. I do have a solution, though. I mean, these people are like, I guess, like facing their own mortality and the end of their lives, and like they're becoming like outrageous and damaging to everybody else. So I just have like a solution to that.
All right. So,
All right.
What? I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
but yeah, yeah. So I think these tech billionaires, that kind of remind me of, I hear stories about like ancient emperors of China who became obsessed with like achieving immortality because they lived such strange lives separated from everyone else in terms of their power and their influence and even like, what they had access to. They were so separate from the rest of humanity. They thought like that inevitable normal human experience, which is mortality, is something that was optional for them.
Right.
And I think something similar happens. Like I'm not just separate from the rest of humanity in some sort of like social or economic way. I'm separate from the rest of humanity in a more profound metaphysical way, where like these kinds of things that all humans have to face, I actually don't have to face. I don't have to deal with that because I'm separate. And I think there's just this, it's just the degree of wealth inequality and the degree of like just living in the clouds because of what they have access to and their insane wealth just makes them think that they don't actually have to be immortal.
I mean, I think you're totally right, and I think that the sort of ancient China emperor connection is really apt because you probably saw this recent meeting between Putin and Xi Jinping of China, where there was this mic that caught them talking informally, and it was about exactly this. It was about actually how in Russia and China they had scientists, teams of scientists working on ways of extending lives, and Putin was talking about how he's going to live to 150, and Xi Jinping was talking about various organ replacement types of things. And so, you get together sort of oligarchs, or sort of tech oligarchs, or Putin and Xi Jinping authoritarian leaders. Throw in Trump for a threesome, and this is what they're thinking about.
I don't like the idea of a threesome there, but sure. I will say that like what they don't really quite understand is that capitalism's very design is that it will create the inequality. Like that is the actual design. Like the inequality has to exist to show people that some deserve and some don't deserve within the system. To justify the very system, it has to create inequality. And of course, like that's not something that these people are going to reckon with because they're not reading any of the books that are behind you, Chris.
I wish our science fiction authors had imagined a more pleasant future for us because like really, I mean, especially given this conversation between Putin and Xi Jinping, it's like these guys are just trying to be like Wayland Yutani. Like they're just trying to live for like 150. Like, oh man, like I wish we had like cooler, more benevolent like characters in our science fiction.
I wish the fucking xenomorph was real.
Alien Earth, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that.
But God, that is so... I did not know that about the hot mic, and that makes this whole conversation just so much more depressing that these guys are just getting together and patting each other on the back and being like, oh, may you live to 200. And he's like, no, you 250.
No, it's just country club shit. Like, they're fucking degenerates. Like, they have no intelligence. Like, they're not talking about reality. They're just like a bunch of good old boys like, yep, we got to the top. I guess we're really special. You're not special. You're the worst people on Earth.
Maybe this is like a good question for Chris, because back in the day, and I'm really just like quoting Titanic, the movie, and not the historical event. You know, Guggenheim.
What do you mean? How would you quote the historical event?
So Guggenheim and all these guys, you know, when they realize that the Titanic's going down, they're like, gentlemen, we are dressed in our best. And like they go down to like smoke cigars and drink brandy, like, and just fucking accept their fate. Like, what has changed? Is it that they're science? And so like Thiel has to create a way, like he has to create a way that science is also like biblical. And like, I don't understand. Like it used to be that our billionaires, you know, had dignity and like, yes, gentlemen, like you'll never catch me complaining, even as you drive the knife into my heart. Like they're so unbothered, even by death. They were unbothered by death as opposed to trying to conquer it.
These people are surgeons. They're surgeons, Jake. Like their whole fucking life, they've been using like calculus, like algebra to fucking get the best outcomes. And of course, like I said, always cruelty. Cruelty is the main thing that will get you to the top here. But then when they had to construct their own soul, when they were looking at death in the eye, and they had to, like children that had never played with this Play-Doh, they had to construct their, it's like, have you ever seen a businessman try to draw a person? Like, that's what's happening. They're trying to draw their soul, and it's late. It is late. It is getting later and later, and it is crude. These drawings are so crude. It's sad. They have no fucking soul, and they desperately are trying to draw it in the late days.
Yeah, to your point, Jake, I mean, I do think, among the elite, there used to be much more this sort of noblesse oblige type of idea. And I don't know, Julian originally started asking if we wanted sort of French kings or the tech oligarchs. I sort of chose the French kings, and I didn't really think that deeply about the time. But if you think about sort of our discussion of capitalism, and how it's actually evolved over the past 50 years, you've had inequality sort of increase at, huge rates, bigger rates than before in history. And part of that, in why we actually don't experience it as much as we probably should, is that as the rich get richer, they are actually isolating themselves in their own sort of separate worlds. And so, the poor are staying poor and the rich are getting richer, and we don't actually sort of realize it because they're sort of continuing to isolate themselves in their own separate worlds. I think it is this idea that they're so much more sort of self-entitled, that the world should run around sort of them. And so I think in part that's what leads to these, just massive, eruptions like, Peter Thiel or Musk have, where, the world doesn't go the way they want it to. And, they have to, sort of step in.
I wish we could treat it a little bit more like addiction, because addiction to money is a real issue. And I think these people they're the same as like someone who's being threatened with like their stash being taken away, as a drug addict.
Yeah.
Like they will come up with any argument, anything. It's not about rationality. They're going to just scramble around finding something, some excuse so that they don't get cut off. And I do think that we don't, because capitalism rewards greed and accumulation of money, we don't treat it as a sickness. Whereas I think anybody that is like above 5 million personal worth and is still ruthlessly seeking more at the expense of others, that is a sick person. That is a genuinely sick person. And I wish we had a fucking societal way to like recognize that and classify that, because we do not right now. We do not. That is that is a blind spot for us.
Like, if you put somebody in the Squid Games, right? Or, you put them in like a locker room with like 20 people and a knife, and you're like, hey, for $2 million, like, you gotta stab everybody in that room with a knife.
Mr. Beast. This is Mr. Beast.
This is
the
Mr. Beast
video.
Okay. And so Mr. Beast is like, I'm gonna put you, and I'm gonna videotape it too. I'm gonna put you in the room, and for $2 million, like, if you kill everybody in the room, you get the money. And like, okay, like, and then basically, if you do that, if you do like horribly slaughter like everybody in the room and come out covered in blood holding the knife, like expecting your $2 million, a couple doctors should come out like the end of Streetcar Named Desire and drag you away. Like that should be the sort of like litmus test. And like you said, Julian, like Thiel, Zuckerberg, Gates, like all of these guys, I'm sure in some not so abstract way are probably responsible for at least a handful of deaths allegedly.
A handful. Millions. Millions of deaths. Not allegedly. Like, study the actual system. They absolutely are. And that I mean, obviously, like, the tech oligarchs are like the kind of, I guess, like, new guard of some of the most cruel people that have acceded to power before them. It's not like Silicon Valley is some sort of new way of being evil or cruel. This is just the system that we live in. But still, absolutely, they're responsible for millions of deaths. Probably dozens directly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Just look at Doge and USAID. I mean, there's that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also want to talk about the peculiar paranoia of Elon Musk. According to Elon Musk, there are a few threats to human civilization. They include wokeness, or what as he calls it, the woke mind virus. You think this is serious?
Yeah, the biggest threat to humanity is that I have a trans daughter.
Yeah.
You piece of shit. You absolute piece of shit. You know what this reminds me of? I was recently watching the British Office and then Extras, and I was like, man, Ricky Gervais was so funny. And then he sequestered himself in his little fucking, like, rich bubble, and he became unfunny as fuck, and he became a hateful little shit. Money literally kills you. Money destroys your soul.
Yeah, I was thinking about like Peter Thiel was able to sell these tickets to his lectures for $200 each, and they sold out instantly. It's like not because he's such a glittering orator. He has some unique ideas, but I don't call them particularly profound or interesting. But I think there's this weird warping effect when someone reaches that level of success, where you are constantly surrounded by people who want to hear what you have to say and act as if they are fascinated. And like, it doesn't matter how awkwardly you say it or how nonsensical the content actually is. Because you're successful, they treat you as a role model. It's like, well, if an early investor in Facebook is saying this, if a Silicon Valley pioneer is saying this, is like they think that, I don't know, that like emulating people like Peter Thiel is sort of like their own personal path to becoming a multi-billionaire. But yeah, this has to have a warping effect. It's not a normal experience for someone to just sort of slobber over every little weird, awkward utterance you make. It's like you don't have the proper feedback to understand whether or not you're actually expressing good ideas or not. I mean, it's the sort of like the classic sort of like problem of like, I guess like, the Sultan who thinks everything he's doing is great because his vizier is just whispering in his ear about how great he is. These people, they don't have normal feedback systems. So the way they talk becomes so strange and warped.
Imagine we had to study the vomitorium, the styles of vomiting, and be like, actually, it's kind of genius in some way. Like we have to find some sort of brilliance in these men who are literally gorging themselves and, like ushering in the end of an empire, like very kind of literally. It's very direct. It's like between the vomiting, this man is muttering some of the smartest stuff I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it as well. I mean, it sort of feeds to this insecurity that, and sort of needing to sort of feel loved and wanted in some ways. And that, even if you're saying crazy stuff, the people still sort of follow you and love you. I think, in some ways gives them, sort of feelings of sort of, I don't know, security in their position. I think, with Trump, this is very much it. I mean, this people demanding loyalty to January 6th, that, clearly 99% of the people that are sort of, saying that, I'm sure that they know probably deep down that that's, actually the election was not rigged and et cetera. But the fact that he can get them to say that and follow his nonsense, yeah. I think there's something about these people that makes them feel sort of more secure and, sort of loved.
It's so funny, too, because I know Elon Musk has been very publicly, like, anti-therapy. Like, he had some tweet where he was like, I'll never talk to a therapist ever. Like, like he was kind of bragging about it when it seems like, I don't know, a couple years, like, it might solve a lot of these fragile egos and these people who, to me, clearly were just, like, terrorized by their rich parents. And, it's human beings, how we are, it's a pretty simple equation. It's our family systems that we were raised in and our environments and our genetics and...
Yeah, but also they're utterly unimportant because, like, capitalism could replace these people easily.
Yes,
like,
of
they're
course.
Not actually special. That's what's so terrifying to them.
Exactly.
They're just like they're literally like the digestive tract of the system. Like they don't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And they're terrified of that. The idea that maybe they're just like instruments of a larger system that promoted them to the top because they were the most effective at doing whatever they needed to do to continue this system. And that's what's so fucking infuriating.
Yeah, I want to return to Elon Musk, his particular worries. So there's the woke mind virus, and he's also very, very worried about slowing population growth. He talks about the birth rate constantly.
Love that combined with like overpopulation. This is such a funny fucking way to think. This is only productivity, by the way. There's only one reason why we would need people to reproduce more, even while we're overcrowding the world by far, is because we need productive little drones to continue capital accretion.
I mean, yeah, the other one that Elon Musk talks a lot about is out of control AI. This one, he kind of deviates from some other tech oligarchs in that he seems to be more comfortable with the idea of, I guess, regulation on his terms of AI, was like other people think that like any regulation at all is unsustainable. But I'm really curious, like, it's like what exactly is this sort of collection of fears with, like, I guess like wokeness, I guess like progressive rhetoric and the population growth and unregulated AI. How does this fit into his particular agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I think for so many of these guys, as we've been talking about, I mean, it sort of really boils down to their own personal problems, issues, and insecurities. I mean, Julian mentioned, unsurprisingly, he came out against woke after his daughter, transitioned. It's, he also talks a lot about, needing to go to Mars. This is another sort of obsession of him that, the world is going to be kind of uninhabitable and we need to go to Mars. I mean, this is clearly, his interest in building rockets, which is, Jeff Bezos also has this sort of obsession. So I think, a lot of it is very much boils down to the personal sort of interests or personal slights that these people have. And they sort of spin them up into these gigantic conspiracy theories to basically defend and make their position seem legitimate.
I won't be so lonely on Mars. Women won't be so mean to me on Mars.
Well, it's a little bit like me and my proton packs. Like I tell my wife,
it's so much like that.
I
Jake.
tell my wife that like I'm kind of thinking about it, that like what I eventually want to do is like join one of those local Ghostbusters chapters and have the full suit and like go to hospitals and stuff and do like charity events.
Oh, that's really cute as fuck, dude.
And I'm like, because there's like a local group. I met them last Halloween, but I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking like maybe like one day I'm gonna do that, and so therefore like it's okay if I collect like 3, maybe even 4, maybe even a 4th proton pack. It's like
a 4th?
Yeah, it's like, let me collect these things because I'm gonna do something dope with them in the future.
I'm actually going to serve humanity after I'm like the greediest piece of shit and like steal from everybody and like kill millions. I'm actually going to be really cool in the future.
Yeah, Elon Musk's personal sort of like concerns remind me of this old Onion article, and the headline was "Grimacing Congressman Quickly Drafts Legislation for Charlie Horse Research." And it's like for some people, they reach this level of power where they are unable to tell the difference between their own personal kind of neuroses and general problems and threats in the wider world, and like they become one and the same, and like the separation between themselves and the world is just obliterated.
And why would they, though? They've been told their whole lives, like, you're special, like, you're an individual. There's no collective, like, dream. There's no collective plan. Why would they ever think outside of their own minds?
Yeah, but for some reason, for me, it's frustrating that so many people like buy into this. Like if I came out and said like the number one threat to civilization is too few people listening to podcasts.
The number one threat to civilization is Julian Field interrupting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like not enough people downloading, listening to podcasts. We need to devote as many resources into podcast literacy. We need to get this in the schools. This needs to happen right now. People see you straight through this. It's like, well, don't you run a podcast? You seems a little self-interested.
It's like Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura, a wrestler who became a governor, and the first thing he did was deregulate the taxes on jet skis because he owned 3.
Yes.
It's like, obviously.
We need to be ordering more research into guys named Julian who do podcasts.
Yeah, guys named Julian who interrupt me personally.
me personally. That's what it is, though. It's me.
It is.
Personally.
It's exactly that. It's psychotic. It's truly so transparent at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why can't people see like when he talks about like, all of a sudden he gets on Twitter, it's like the number one threat to humanity is people being mean to be online or like whatever. It's like it seems pretty obvious that he's sort of advancing a personal agenda through the rhetoric of universal good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. What is it? Just the billionaire aura? It's just the success that they've achieved that allows them to like be this transparent, to act as if their political agenda is anything besides immediate self-interest.
You're saying it's not a meritocracy?
I think, part of it too, I mean, it's not just one day they wake up and they make this connection, but they've probably been talking about it and everyone is sort of reinforcing how smart they are and they know the important issues and of course they're right. And so, I do think that there's this process when you become so wealthy that you're so isolated and have just yes men and people supporting your opinion all around you that of course these ideas, are things that are really world problems because that's been validated by your entire sort of social and business group.
Yeah, it's like imagine having every meal be a 3-star Michelin. Imagine anyone around you that displeases you being disappeared. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, you end up totally insane.
Yeah.
You end up totally warped.
Yeah, if my dad had like come into my bedroom at like, when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old and plopped down a gaming PC with like a 5090 in it, 4K monitor. I'm talking in 1992, by the way, okay?
Okay, so this is like ahistorical, but yeah. You're getting access to future technology through your dad. Is he a time traveler, by the way, Jake?
He like got a deal from some guy,
Yeah.
He picked up some deal. It's kind of like
this little guy called Doc. With his friend Marty McFly.
No, in the same shop where the other dad gets Gizmo for his kid. In the same shop where they sell Mogwais, they also in late 80s, early 90s had very advanced PCs.
I love that you would be trying to run like Lemmings on that shit.
No. It would have all the modern software. So
all the software.
So basically, imagine if I played.
By the way, they're all games. They're all games as a service. So you would need like a high-speed internet connection. So could you at least explain how that works too?
That's the magic. That's the magic from the shop.
That's the magic of cinema, Hollywood.
No,
baby.
Magic from the shop. And but like, imagine having to then grow up as all these other kids are getting excited about like N64 and like PlayStation, and I've already seen it all.
That's true, actually.
Like I would feel completely dead inside because I'm like, I have to wait for all these fucking pissants. These guys are being like, the third whistle in Mario 3. And I'm like, 18-4 on like Black Ops 6. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and let's be honest. Like, these guys, and this is alleged, but they've probably had sex with like dozens of like Playboy models. Then they were like, I need some children. And then it's like, yeah, they don't feel anything anymore. They've literally lived all the vicarious pleasures they possibly could, and there's nothing there. It didn't fill their souls. It didn't make them feel whole. It made them feel emptier than ever. And yeah, it's not good. It turns out material goods, it turns out accumulation of power doesn't feel good. It just feels pleasurable for a moment. And then you are left thinking, I might be a monster. I might be the Antichrist. Okay, time to organize like fucking 6 like speaking gigs where I'm like telling people it's actually the like 19-year-old girl who's fighting for Palestine. She's the Antichrist. I mean, at this point it's so egregious. That's what's so fucking insulting.
Chris, how do you keep your like soul as I ask anybody who has to look into this extensively, like how do you keep from going too far into the void as somebody who is researching these people in this space?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the research, I've sort of come about these articles that I've written in the Jacobin and other places, almost by accident. For many of the reasons we've talked about in this podcast, a long time ago, so I have a PhD in sociology, and my earliest work was on like social elites and these ideas of being in these, sort of clubs together and how it really sort of isolates these people. And so this last year, I think when all of these tech bros have sort of stepped up in the sort of public conversation much more prominently, I read things and it's insane to me. And so that has really spurred a lot of this writing. So it's not like this has been like sort of burning in my, they've been sort of burning in my mind for years. So maybe a year or two from now, I will become much more depressed. But actually, a lot of the work I do are with, like social entrepreneurs or social enterprises that are actually trying to do good in the world. And so I take a lot of,
So that's healing. That's your sort of like saving grace.
Never become a podcaster.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about Marc Andreessen, which is someone you've written about before.
Yeah.
This is another guy who is, I guess, it just talks about his technology, especially like, I guess, the kinds of things he works in and invests in these existential, civilizational terms.
Right.
And one of the ways that Marc Andreessen has expressed this is through something called the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. And it's about like, basically about like how, great technology is for civilization and like the people who build it. And there's a section of this manifesto that talks about his enemies or the enemy. And Jake, could you read this section here?
We have enemies. Our enemies are not bad people, but rather bad ideas. Our present society has been subjected to a mass demoralization campaign for 6 decades against technology and against life, under varying names like existential risk, sustainability, ESG, sustainable development goals, social responsibility, stakeholder capitalism, precautionary principle, trust and safety, tech ethics, risk management, degrowth, the limits of growth. This demoralization campaign is based on bad ideas of the past, zombie ideas, many derived from communism. Well, of course.
You motherfuckers! You stole our future! You stole our future just because you hated the idea that we could do anything together. You fucking waged a fucking multi-million death campaign
we broke
to make
them,
sure
folks.
this idea wouldn't win. Sorry.
We were eventually going to get there on this episode. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm surprised that you made it an hour and 8 into the recording. It'll be less than that for you, listeners.
Your idea was so fucking good, you had to kill. You had to fucking kill. It had to be at the end of the gun. Your fucking great idea, you assholes.
Okay, wait, let me finish the quote because it's awful. He says, okay, so basic bad idea. Zombie ideas, many derived from communism, disastrous then and now, that have refused to die. So he's like, and so it is upon us, the billionaires, to kill it.
There's lots of stuff going on here. One thing that struck me is the idea that, like, there's been a sort of like an anti-technology demoralization campaign for the past 6 decades, which just sounds anti-reality. This past 6 decades has been subject to like the greatest, largest expansion of of technology in its usage in its corporation and everyday life of any time in history. So I don't know what he's talking about there, but just generally, what do we make of this strange paranoia?
A couple things. I mean, that essay is almost as unhinged as the Peter Thiel's Antichrist comments. Professors actually also are, I take a particular sort of pride that I'm as a professor also, we are sort of the enemies of Marc Andreessen. And, like you said, Travis, I mean, this is something where we've had this amazing technical expansion over the past 60 years. The problem is, though, these companies are all in the monopolies, and the government is actually looking very carefully at how they're abusing power, how they're dominating markets, how they're really sort of hurting the broader public. And so now that has occurred and they're not actually able to operate as freely as they were when they were like little tiny companies, when actually a lot of times they actually probably had pretty good social, social and ecological values. So as soon as they get gigantic and monopolies, there's scrutiny on them. And then of course, they attack these people that they have scrutiny on. And I think, it's so rich, the way that both Marc Andreessen and Peter Thiel are the sort of in some ways the, poster child of this, where, they claim that intellectuals are bad, that, these sort of sophisticated ideas are bad, but they themselves dress up all of their talks with all these like abstract philosophers and ideas. And so, again, I think it's a big, insecurity that they have, that somehow their sort of, intellect or ideas are not sort of gaining as much traction. So they attack intellectuals, but then try to be intellectuals themselves. I mean, so it's, totally insane.
What strikes me is that these guys act just absolutely incensed and bewildered and offended that anyone could pretend to have more authority than them in any realm, not even just like material authority. It's like they act like politicians act like they have some sort of political authority because they've been selected through some sort of political process. That's offensive to them. The idea that academics have some sort of intellectual authority, or like progressive activists have some sort of moral authority. It's like, obviously they act as like there's no way other people have more authority than them. They have the ideas that made all the money. So obviously they have the ultimate authority in all realms, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly what, if you read these, that Marc Andreessen Techno-Optimist Manifesto, that's the underlying message.
Yeah, it's like they don't treat technology or business as like one domain of humanity. They act as it's the prime domain that should rule over all other domains.
Yeah. And obviously they've had the success in that. And so, they should actually, basically dominate society. And this is not, a new thing. If you look, even a lot of the philanthropy, which we talked about earlier, the sort of the models that Bill Gates has taken, are from people like Rockefeller and Carnegie and many of the, some of the people that sort of sank on the Titanic, Jake. I mean, these are folks that had the exact same ideology that, we've accumulated all this money and we should have, power over society, over governments in some cases, and also like the issues that we care about, building libraries or, whatever are the things that money should be spent on, not necessarily the money should be, taken back, and redistributed to the population in a way that is much more democratic.
I guess before I let you go, I was like, what if you could offer maybe some like notes of like optimism, because it seems like it seems to me like one point of this rhetoric is to like justify their just total domination and all rest. It's like there seems the prime message is like, give us everything we want, impede us in no ways, or else we're all dead. And it's like, I mean, again, this is the rhetoric of a cult leader. But like, I mean, what exactly is, I guess, the path to escaping this vision that they say is optimist, but I find very dystopian.
It's not. I mean, we did do an episode on techno-optimism a long time ago, and before obviously I'm a very big interrupter, Chris, so I want to hear what you have to say. But techno-optimism was not this. This was not techno-optimism. Techno-optimism was the belief that this would connect us, that this would actually like form a kind of almost like mycelium style network of human minds and inform us all in ways that would liberate us. And now we're being fed this shit as techno-optimism? Anyways, go ahead.
So you asked to be sort of like somewhat, I guess, positive, to sort of come to the end. And, I think it's hard after, all the things we've been talking about, but some of the things that I at least think about and try to help sort of move along. I mean, fortunately, these guys are all very ham-handed, I think, in all their ideas. This Antichrist thing of Peter Thiel or the techno-optimist, I can't imagine that anyone outside of their sort of cult or people that want to be with them read that and think this is like a legitimately, reasonable way to think. Also, I think that people are getting really fed up with the levels of inequality in our world. And it's clear that these guys' strategies are about exacerbating inequality. And if you look at, the New York mayoral race that's sort of undergoing right now, all kinds of rich, property developers have come out and donated to Andrew Cuomo's campaign, but people are still supporting Mondani like, incredibly, because they know that affordability and inequality are the key issues. And Andrew Cuomo is not going to be the person that delivers on that, or Bill Ackman, who's supporting him, et cetera. And then finally, I'll say, we talked a little bit about the Gilded Age, that, that was followed by the Progressive era. And I think people got fed up with, the labor conditions in Andrew Carnegie's steel mills and other sort of egregious human rights violations, really, on labor. And so, people stood up. And I think that we're starting to see that with the No Kings rally, with the mayoral race in New York. And so I am, assuming we don't have a forever president in Donald Trump, I'm optimistic that the tide will turn against these oligarchs. And I think, one of the reasons why they're fighting so hard to maintain the status quo is because, all these ideas that Jake mentioned that, Marc Andreessen is against. I mean, there are starting to be serious critiques of their power and influence. So anyways, I'm guardedly optimistic.
Yeah, there are more of us than them, and the people are pissed off, and I think most of us are, we're still laughing at the kings, right? We're making fun of the people who are sycophants, and I have felt the same way, Chris, about this New York mayoral race. Is it feels like, on whole, people are fed up with how far the gap or how far the wedge has been driven economically between these various classes. And so
I always kind of like, I guess, keep my eye on the larger picture, and that's where, and I don't want to take away from any kind of optimism. I'm a huge Mamdani guy, obviously I think that the depravity of his opposition is just so clear, and just the reliance on hatred and internecine and kind of ethnic separation, like these are depraved people, and they're showing their ass entirely, to use common parlance. But I will say that we are in the imperial core. We are dealing with a country where it's like, yes, it would be great to have a great mayor in New York City that cared about, like, people being able to afford the subway. But we're talking about 1,000 military bases. We're talking about a dollar-centric economic system. We're talking about so many institutions. And, you mentioned earlier USAID. As much as I know that withdrawing USAID funds is directly impacting people, we are still talking about essentially like the kind of Band-Aid that was applied to kind of soothe the imperial, I guess, wound, the wound of the spear that, is drawing blood and continues to draw blood. I think of that Lancet study that stated that, about 500,000 people die every year from just the financial sanctions and embargoes and things like that. So, yes, and again, I'm not trying to be a doomer. I'm just looking at the larger picture and saying there's a larger system that needs to be dismantled right now. And we need to face that as well. Yeah. Of course, it's like the people are going to rise, like no kings. Great. Can we at least inform the American people that they've been running the largest empire on earth? Can we inform them that even if you want to look at authoritarianism in Russia and China, that they both have, at the most outrageously high estimate, 20 bases abroad?
No, Julian, no. There's too many mirrors in here.
I know. It's tough. I know it's tough, folks. I just think, and again, I like incremental progress. I fucking love it. I think it's really important. I really think that if Mamdani wins, it's a big fucking deal. But I also want to just remind people that most in the world are living in the utmost poverty. They're being exploited in ways that are unimaginable for the average human being. It's not about whether they get consciousness about, like their local mayoral race. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to add that in and just kind of like give a little bit more depth to a more global perspective on this, and the fact that these men that we're discussing are demons. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, No, of course, I'm not a religious person, so I don't think that's right. But if they want to be religious now, if suddenly they think that atheism is not the right way to see it, great. You know what, guys? You're actually demons.
Yeah, and Julian's Constantine.
Like you are like the satanic order. And so yeah, go fuck yourself to these men. That's all I have to say. And I guess, well, that's not all I have to say. I'm sure I could go on forever because I'm really annoying about this shit. But I just like have a lot of compassion for people who might be listening to this conversation and going, what the fuck? Like, you're not even close to addressing my issues. And I think that global poverty and inequality is at levels that are fucking outrageous. Like you said, it's like it makes monarchy look like friendly, So, yeah, no, I really appreciate this conversation. And I think it's a really important one. And I do want people to not feel discouraged. I think that tides do shift. And I think that eventually humanity is, I guess, on its way to realizing that working together is the only way. And that not seeing ourselves as like atomized individuals is the only way that we can possibly build a better future. We need to think of ourselves as a mass. We need to think of ourselves as a common mind, a common soul.
So many like conspiracy theories and the people that are deep in those communities are fantasizing about just that. Like it's something that I think human beings naturally want.
Where we go on, we go all. Like that is, I know it's a QAnon saying, but it's like, it's true. Except the guy who's eating steaks in fucking Florida, like thinks that means like him and Trump and his friends are in it together. He maybe should think about like the Nicaraguan like peasant. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, one thing that does make me kind of optimistic, just the fact that Greta Thunberg made Thiel so paranoid, he accused her of being possibly the Antichrist.
Oh, that's so cool because she literally got dragged around and like forced to kiss the Israeli flag. Like she was like beaten and they were like, fake news. Insane.
I just think it's pretty extraordinary. Someone like Thiel who has everything, tens of billions of dollars.
I know, he's terrified.
Yeah, and then like a hand in like some companies, some very frightening companies that are like expanding the surveillance state. He has his allies in power. It feels like civilizationally everything is stacked in his favor. Yet somehow one young, very fixated woman is able to get under his skin to that degree.
She's so fucking cool. I would love to just like sit here and say, hey, Greta, incredible. You're in the mouth of these demons. They have to mention you somehow. And the braveness, like the fact that human spirit like still exists is so fucking beautiful to me. It makes me a little bit hopeful for the future. And no matter how many times they drag you around and make you kiss the flag of the oppressor, no matter how many times they make you, they torture you. Because that is what happens. That's what happened to Mandela. That's what happened to every fucking person who tried to stand up for a little bit better world. So yeah, I don't know. If you want to get married anytime, I'm gonna get a divorce.
I didn't know that that's
soon,
where this was
Greta,
going, but that's all right.
What are you guys talking about? This is a dating app. Hello, Greta.
Gosh,
I have a lot of positive.
All right.
Listen, I have some problems. I'm not gonna lie. I have some issues.
She is 22 years old, you old man.
What do you mean? I'm at 25.
Maybe in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's true. Yeah, that's okay.
This is. Do you think there's anything else like people should kind of think about the political agenda of these tech oligarchs before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think we sort of covered most of it. I mean, I think that the contrast with Greta Thunberg, is really, insightful way to think about this. Like, why is that such a threat to Peter Thiel? And I think, Trump talks about her as well. And I think, the little minor concerns, so-called minor concerns that many of these folks have, I think really reveals, in some ways the weakness that they have. And so I think, as we're sort of in some ways organizing against them, I mean, I think keeping those weaknesses in mind is really important.
I just hope that those weaknesses and that fear translates to any kind of shift in the power structures, because, it's like, obviously the Nazi leader is going to feel like the spokesperson for the ghetto is a threat. Did that change in any meaningful way the outcome of that situation? No. And I want it to. I want it to so desperately. And I think we need more Gretas. We need to all, honestly, I mean, it's like, I don't want to become like the Charlie Chaplin fucking speech, but we need to lay our bodies on the fucking cogs. We need to, there's just no choice anymore. And by that, I mean, we need to.
All right. Okay.
All right.
I think we're going to take it out from here. So we've been speaking to Christopher Marquis. I'm going to link to your Jacobin articles in the show notes, but where else can people find your work?
Yeah, so they can find I have a website, my name, chrismarquis.com. I have a recent book called The Profiteers, How Business Privatizes Profit and Socializes Cost, that resonates quite a bit with our discussion. Folks should take a look at.
Fantastic.
Very talented. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Sorry for being, myself.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking your time.
No, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for listening to another episode of the QAA podcast. You can go to patreon.com/QAA and subscribe for $5 a month to get a whole second episode every week, plus access to our entire archive of premium episodes. For everything else, we've got a website that's QAApodcast.com. Listener, until next week, may the deep dish bless you and keep you.
Can we just interject for a second? Also, Jake, of course, don't forget cursedmedia.net. This is where you can sign up for our miniseries. We have a great new miniseries coming called Truly, Tradly, Deeply by Annie Kelly and another Kelly, Megan Kelly. I'm trying not to think this is a conspiracy against me, but they are going to be covering some of these fascinating topics. And obviously, if you're not a supporter of women, don't sign up. Okay. But if you are, you should be studying.
All right.
What? If you are, you should be studying these movements and not listening to just a bunch of guys like us and Jake, specifically Jake and Travis.
Specifically at me.
Really, if you don't sign up to Curse Media, civilization is at risk. So
actually.
Cursedmedia.net, and then we also just released a ton of bonus content for the original series that we released, which is Liv Agar and Spencer Barrows. They covered obviously the trans medicine, the early trans medicine, and the kind of creation of the trans identity in the medical community and how that was treated along the eras. Lots of new stuff. We have tons of interviews, tons of bonus material, an epilogue for the entire series. So go sign up. You'll get access to the old series as well. We're going to keep building this platform, and we're going to keep building, independent voices that matter. So just like Chris, which, by the way, we called him Marquis. Turns out he calls himself Marquis, but he was just so nice and so friendly that he didn't mention it. But either way, however you call Chris, go check out his stuff, please.
Yeah, go check out his work, please. Okay, and listener, for real this time. Until next week, may the deep dish bless you and keep you.
We have auto-queued content based on your preferences. my very specific question for you, right, is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history? Would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
To be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety.